Welcome to Your Week with St. Luke's, a weekly podcast from St. Luke's United Methodist Church in Orlando. This episode is part of a special series exploring the spiritual power of storytelling and our upcoming theater production of Big Fish. Pastor Jenn is joined by members of the cast and creative team as they reflect on the power of theater as modern-day parable, sharing stories that heal, challenge, and invite us to experience God's love in new ways. Let's jump right into this conversation.
Welcome, everyone. This is Pastor Jenn, and it is time for my favorite podcast of the year when we talk about theater, especially theater at St. Luke's. And we are joined by an amazing group of people, St. Lukers, who are also helping us tell this beautiful story of Big Fish this summer. So I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves. Let's start with Kelly.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Morris Rowan, and this is my first production at St. Luke's. I'm very excited to be a part of that. My family and I became partners this year, so excited to continue the journey through the theater ministry.
My name is Dustin Russell, and I'm back.
Yay!
I've been gone for 5 years, but me and my family are back from Colorado and excited to be back home at St. Luke's doing theater with all of you again.
And I am Steve MacKinnon. I am the Senior Artistic Director here at St. Luke's. Been here about 17, going on 18 years with Pastor Jenn, and just really excited to be revisiting this show this summer with these amazing people.
So I want to just briefly, because we'll actually, in a coming podcast, Steve and I are going to really talk about theater and biblical theater and what does all of this mean and why do we do it. But let's talk about how we got started. So Steve, when was our first production? Do we remember how many years ago it's been?
Oh, gosh. I think it's been like 12 or 13 years.
I think we're on our 13th summer. Now, theater has always been arts has always been a part of St. Luke's. But it was 13 years ago that we decided to do a show.
A concert.
Hairspray.
In concert.
Which turned into probably one of the largest productions we did.
To date.
But we were very, very specific. You and I and a group of people said, we're going to do theater as a way to reach people in our area. Because that was when we were a part of the vision that said we were going to speak love aloud and reach people who've been marginalized from the church. And we knew that a lot of theater people, being in the trifecta of the Bermuda Triangle of entertainment that we are, had been harmed by the church. And so how do we do this as a way of evangelism, which means telling the good news, not necessarily we want you to be a part of us, but we do want you to be a part of us if that's what you want. But more importantly, we want you to hear good news. And to share your gifts and know you're beloved. But we were also going to tell stories that reach into who we are and our core values. And so we told Hairspray. And since then, we've been telling stories that make a difference and get the community thinking. But also, we've been really successful in the cast that comes from the community feeling like they feel a part of this ministry. And some of them do come to church, and some of them share their gifts during worship and in leadership and things like that. But others don't, but still would call themselves St. Lukers. So I'd like to ask all three of you, especially the three of you, not just because you're connected to the life of the church, but because of your entertainment background. What difference does it make for you that a church would do this kind of theater ministry?
That's a great question. My background, I grew up in Virginia, and I actually grew up Catholic, practicing Catholic, and we didn't really have theater of any kind of ministry. But one particular Easter season as a child, we did The Passion Story as a play. And I'll never forget it because all of these people who I'd just seen every Sunday, just, saying, peace be with you, and, pass the basket, and suddenly were portraying Jesus. My mom portrayed Mary, and I remember watching her weep and the depiction of the crucifixion and all these things. And I went, oh, this isn't words. This is more than words. This is an active story, and I can be a part of telling it. And seeing how many people were moved by that just sort of sparked that theater bug in me. But then, because the entertainment world we live in, it's not often found back in a church setting, not in a way that feels inclusive. So for me, I years before attending St. Luke's, I have friends that have been a part of this theater ministry, attending it or being in it, speaking about it. So I started to come see shows. I saw Children of Eden before I knew you, and I saw Oliver, and just kept hearing about this incredible church that was doing this work and doing theater. And then every time there's always a speech beforehand that would remind me I was welcome, that remind me everyone was welcome. And then to start watching theater with that mindset just opened doors. It felt like even if the doors hadn't been shut to me personally, to feel like they were suddenly open to everyone was such an incredible feeling. So for me to now be a part of that journey and getting to meet people in the cast, people helping build sets, people helping advertise, whatever it might be, to see the work being done through the profession I've chosen in my life just adds an extra layer of meaning. I didn't honestly know was possible.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, she kind of hit the nail on the head really well, explaining why we're so fortunate as artists to get to be a part of this theater ministry. Because my first one was Big Fish.
Right.
The first time we
The
did it.
first
That was my first
time.
time we
That's so
did it.
cool.
And being pulled into the community and knowing that everyone here is a volunteer and they're giving their time. They're willing to sow the seeds into the production, into this theater ministry, and then getting to see what you get to reap as a church because of those seeds is unbelievable. And because Kelly was saying, we get the chance to tell a story that's alive. And so being able to breathe life into these words. I remember one year Pastor Jai was talking about these, the words on a script are just words until we breathe life into it. And it's the same thing with the word. Like, so getting to do that in a different way, using our talents is, it's unlike anything else that we get to do in this profession.
Steve, what do you think?
Oh, what a loaded question for me to answer.
I know, that's why I asked it.
So one of my most favorite things about why and the impact it can make is truly the intentionality of our church outreaching into the community, getting folks to take a risk by even stepping on property to be part of maybe their passion or their calling or their profession, for maybe a project, maybe for the people, or maybe because it is their church. But part of our mission is to really reach to at least, 50% of people who are not our members to be in the production.
Right.
We commit to that. And to have a place that those people like Dustin and Jenn and Jad have said before, become the preachers of whatever message we choose to tell that summer. Whether they become St. Lucas or not, that's not the goal. But to experience the love of who we are and the fellowship and the community, it is so beyond oneself, right? Because you see the impact of that with people years down the road, with their relationships, their families, and our community that we work in entertainment. It is truly a intersection of church and faith journeys, and then professional entertainment journeys and community and youth and adults and retirees. And it's just, it's beyond description. It's snowballed into this giant thing that it is so impactful and meaningful. It's just part of my own DNA now, which is
Right.
beautiful.
Well, and it's interesting because just as you were talking, it is reflective of scripture, of the Gospels, where Jesus went and, thousands would gather and he would tell these parables and these stories. And it preaching, yes, but more importantly, telling a story that got to what does this mean to you? Which is exactly what theater is, right? It's telling parables and inviting the audience who listened. But he did that hoping that people would hear a sense of God. Who is God and who are you in God's story? But never checking attendance and saying, so are you going to come and be a part of the followers?
Right.
Thousands were there listening again and again and again, but it's not necessarily that thousands became followers, but thousands were touched by this story. And in essence, that's what we're inviting people to be a part of, whether it's on the stage or it's in the audience. We're actually walking in Jesus's footsteps of how he gathered people and shared good news by telling these compelling parables that we keep telling summer after summer after summer, which leads us to why big fish and why big fish again? Because we've told this story once. It was our third show.
Yep.
Why are we doing it again, Steve?
Well, it's definitely in the hearts of anyone who is part of it originally. It is one of my top 3 favorite theater pieces to be a part of. One of my favorite ones we've done here. And I just think the story is so special because it's so real about a family and relation slips. Wow, that came back.
Yeah, right. That's what we preached on.
I know it is. Last time,
time.
relation slips.
Yep.
And relationships and legacy and how we work through those through our lives, through different parts of our life, and to revisit this kind of a story more than a decade later is a privilege, and there's a new weight as a parent,
Right.
and as a husband, and all kinds of things that I wasn't the first time, right? And so to revisit this kind of story, and through 11 years of lived experience as a storyteller. And theater professional is just exciting with where the ministry has grown as well, to be able to re-envision it and how can we retell the story again in new, exciting, fresh ways for our community and our performers.
So Dustin Kelly, you play Edward and Sandra Bloom. So tell us, what is this story about?
Take it away, Edward.
So Big Fish is it's about Edward and his big fantastical life that he's lived and all the people he's reached and touched and impacted through his journey. But it ultimately is the story of his reconciliation with his son, Will, where Will has heard these stories his entire life, doesn't really believe that they're true because they're so extravagant and so over the top, that it's almost that the entire piece is focused on Will's search for the truth of who is Edward, who is the man who is the big fish, and being able to play Edward now. Like Steve was saying, I'm also now a husband. I also am a father, and that added weight of being a father and looking at my kids and wanting to do best for them, just like Edward wanted to do for Will, even though he is a very flawed man. He's not a perfect man.
No one
but
is.
No one is. But he's doing his best. I think his motive may not always be great, but he's at least going to try. And he's head over heels in love with his girl, Sandra, that he sees at a circus, that he dedicates 3 years of his life to finding her.
But largely because of a story he was told or saw in part of the journey, he's given this prediction, peek into the future, but it's all told through a story. It's a show of stories, which is what I fall in love with it so much. And Sandra, who starts as Sandra Templeton, then becomes Sandra Bloom, I find her character is the connecting piece between the journey of Edward and Will. You see Will, Edward's son, as both a child and an adult. Edward and Sandra have the privilege, I will call it a privilege, of aging throughout the course of the show, and you'll have flashbacks in between times. But Sandra, you see that relationship of mother to a young child and married with a young child, which for anyone who does not know me, I currently have 4-year-old twin boys at home and have a new perspective on the, to honor what we're talking about, faithfulness and love that is required while raising young children.
Amen.
So we all are sharing that journey of young children together. But it's a real privilege to portray that story as Sandra goes through being the teenager who falls in love and experiences that for the first time. And just true, almost unblemished love that we all know becomes blemished because we're human. And then going through that journey of raising a small child and then seeing that child as an adult and perhaps not connecting immediately with the personality of your adult child and what that means, how to have that unconditional love, not in how to have it, but just what it means to have that at every age. And then even to walk someone through a difficult final stage of life. And it's just a really beautiful show and story, a collection of stories to reflect what I believe is the story of life as we know it.
Right. I think it's truly a story of life because it is interesting because you all are talking about now you all have young children and you're married and you're doing the show when, 10 years later. And I'm the one with the adult children.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing it through a very different lens. And I'm understanding the tension between Sandra and Edward and what that looks like. And it is all of these different stories of life, which is exactly what Jesus was doing all through Scripture, right? He was telling us stories that gets to people's understanding of what's your life like. What's it like to be, bridesmaids who aren't ready? What's that like to be, trying to be the tenant who has something that's been given to him, and what do you do with it? How do you be faithful? All of those stories. And that's what you see is just completely these descriptions of Jesus's parables through Edward and through Sandra again and again and again. And you see Will trying to understand not just who Edward is, but who he is because of it.
Yeah.
For sure.
What do you think, Steve?
No, I agree. And coming into it too is last time we did it being probably more Will's age, and working through reconciling relationships in my own family, and working through that and loss of parents as well, right? And working through life cycles. It's a show about life cycles too, and relationships and how they change, which is so impactful, and how you apply those stories or parables, right? And how we grow and learn. And I think that's the ultimate hope for an audience, is what theater, the impact it can make through its storytelling, challenge the audience, or to inspire or think differently, or work on our empathy for our own family, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing to experience and be challenged with, and be hopefully inspired and laugh and heal through as well.
So this has been a great conversation, just talking very high level about why we do theater and about Big Fish. But we are going to be back next week, and we hope you all will join us as we get into some of the real stories and how it connects, and the idea of becoming and how this relates to the fruits of the Spirit. So we'll see you again next week.